So I just start throwing stuff down. I don't think about it too much, especially in the beginning. One of the things that paper has done for me is I keep losing my stuff. It's just opened up my compositions. At one point, I think I was kind of stuck in my composition and creating the same thing over and over again. And somehow, when I discovered paper, at least paper in this form, it really just kind of exploded and opened up so many different avenues for the composition to take. And so I really don't think a whole lot about it, and I try to take my mind out of the process as much as I can, and just kind of enjoy gluing paper down, which I love to do. Bound paper, painted paper. I take large sheets of paper and paint those. Scale is kind of a big deal in work for artists, translating from small to big. And when you're working with found material or paper, it's pretty easy to find, if you're working on a 12 by 12 panel or something like that, it's pretty easy to find, a piece of paper, a piece of black paper, or a piece of pink paper that is gonna span the width of 12 inches. But if you're working on 5 feet, 6 feet, 12 feet, it's a little bit harder to find those papers. So I've started finding them, or painting them, rolling up big sheets of paper on the wall and painting them. So this piece is a combination. Right now it's all found paper.
How do you know when you're done?
Well, I used to obsess about a piece until I was done. I'd work on one piece until it was from beginning to end, and I couldn't start another piece until I kind of got that piece out of my system. And a few years ago, I changed that, and I work on many pieces at once. In various stages of being done, and I kind of just don't claim that a piece is done until it kind of sits for a while. But it is just a feeling, very much. You kind of just know. But sometimes you get so, just obsessed with a piece, and you've had a long day and you've been working it and you're just too connected with it, and usually in your gut you kind of know it's good, but you're just obsessing with it so much, and then you put it away, come back the next day, and all of a sudden it kind of makes sense again.
Are you thinking about the colors when you're placing them, or is it just intuitive?
It's intuitive. I mean, sometimes I'll set out to say this piece is going to be more or less black and white. That would be the extent of it, of me kind of planning out the palette of the piece. But even when I do that, I may not stick to it. I pretty much just try to listen to the piece and let it be what it wants to be. Or, it starts out with a lot of color and then reveals itself to be more of a black and white, or just an all white piece, more or less. But that kind of speaks to kind of what I do in the process. So if a piece starts out with lots of color, as the piece builds up, you can see, like by these two edges that I'm starting to work, how I always reveal kind of a glimpse into the process. And so the more a piece gets worked in my process, the more that gets built up. I rarely will take a paper and just go directly to the edge. I'm always revealing a little bit of what was left. So a piece can be heavily worked, and then in the end, with, you know, lots of paper that's going into it, and then in the end, I'll take, more often than not, I'll take one big piece of paper, you know, that's probably 80% of the piece. So a lot of times it's white and just cover up, you know, almost everything. But it's just become about these edges for me. I didn't set out for that to happen. I mean, I've always been interested in edges. I think the edges of a piece are important. But this particular body of work that I've developed over the last few years has really just kind of revealed itself to be about these edges. And it's not purposeful. I mean, I don't do it on purpose. I don't want it to feel forced or like that I'm framing the piece. I'm by no means trying to frame the piece, but it is kind of what it's about. Or what, you know, what it accomplishes for the piece. It does do some sort of, acts as some sort of frame. And I just always find, you know, in a work that a sense of history, a sense of the past, a sense of the process. I mean, and the idea of letting go. You know, artists, I think, are a fearful bunch in general, and you know, we all have issues with letting go, and so this process for me, every time I lay down a piece of paper, I'm just letting go, and you know, letting go of what's existed and let it become another piece, and just, you know, just not worry about it.
You don't need a bicep workout, do you?
No, I have some, I know, it's either turning 40 or this gluing. Yeah, it's probably this.
How'd you get started?
With this work, this particular work, or with making art in general. This work. Yeah. I mean, you know, this work, which I started doing, how many years ago? 3. I started to develop it maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago. I didn't realize it at the time, but it really is going back to something that I was doing, let's say 20 years ago when I was in school, and I was doing figurative oil painting in my studio, and then at the same time I was doing printmaking. I never really saw myself as a printmaker. I was more serious about the paintings, but the paintings weren't very good, and what I was doing in the print studio was actually dictated a lot of where I've ended up with my work. And it was about found paper, so I was making collages. It was my first collages, my first kind of experiment with, you know, the found object, the found paper. So I was making collages, and then I was taking plexiglass and scratching into it, you know, very kind of Twombly-esque type scratching and printing over the collages. And to this day, I look at those pieces, and if I had done them today, I'd be very happy with them. So I kind of left that for a long time. I mean, I've always been inspired by that. The idea of the found paper, our urban landscape, you know, in its kind of abstract form. But I kind of left it, and I found it again. So in a way, I'm kind of going back to something I was interested in the very beginning. which I didn't even realize when it was happening. And then someone said to me, like, that knew me back then, and they were like, Michael, you're doing what you were doing 20 years ago in school in the print studio. I was like, yeah, I guess I am. So it feels good. And for me, it's also about finding abstraction again, which I lost for a while. And I just feel like this is me in its purest form. It's really what I want to be doing. So I could do this all day. I just keep gluing paper down, keep changing the piece, keep revealing on the edges the sense of process, the sense of history.
So this is a lot of layers.
Yeah. And I don't really set off to say that, you look at a piece up close, and when you see this deep sense of history in a piece, you tend to gravitate towards that. But I don't set out to say this piece is going to be, heavily layered, and I'm just going to, that it just kind of happens. I don't set out with that being the intent. And I am, some are work more than others. I do, I will stop sometimes. You've been shooting this from the beginning, which has only been about 10 minutes, and I could come across something that I'm ready to take a pause with and move on to another piece and come back to, and I might decide it's done. So a piece this size, 24 by 24, could be done in 10 minutes. I'm always open to that. But you can see I work pretty fast, so even if it's done in 10 minutes, the piece can be, quite layered.
You have to work fast with this material?
The medium will, not that fast. It's not like you have, 30 seconds to get it glued down. Like maybe if you imagine a spray adhesive or something like that, you have like a very short window of time. This is pretty, I have time. I wouldn't say that. I don't feel like I'm in a rush.
It's just how you are.
It's just, yeah.
Where's all this paper come from?
Found paper. I'll go to places, where you can, found meaning on the street, like from, something like this, which is billboard paper, flyers from, I'll go hit the flyers from telephone poles and
keep the community clean.
Yeah, keep it clean. I do my duty with that. And then, but more and more, I'm just kind of painting. I'm becoming more and more interested in just solid shapes of color, So I like that kind of graphic street stuff in the work, but it tends to be less dominant part of the work. It's more just built into the history, the fabric of the piece. So I guess I do less of that. Or I'll go to I have stacked this high of billboard paper that I got from a billboard company. So I'll work with that too a lot. But yeah, more and more painting my own paper. So taking a roll of paper, tacking it up on the wall, and just making a 6-foot sheet of red paper, and I'll do that. I'll spend a day just painting paper that I then tear up. And you can see I don't really use scissors much. It's a lot about the tear. I've always felt like I used to draw a lot, and I feel like what drawing does is kind of give you that sense of hand, kind of that sense of the artist. You really feel his touch in the work. But I get that in the work I'm doing now. I really get that from the tear. It kind of satisfies that want to have kind of a hand drawn line in the piece. So something like this, where the white paper and just it's very organic and kind of just random and natural how it tears. And so that's kind of the line quality, how I see it in my work these days.